The positioning accordion houses one of the most important features of Designer Pro, called Float. Float is a web design tool used to reposition things around a page. As long as an element or block has a width lower than 100%, they are able to float things to the left side, float left, the right side, float right, or the center of a page, float none. Think of it working similar to text-align. Sometimes, if you have two elements next to each other that are set to 50% width, you can float one to the left and the other to the right to have them stacked next to each other. The positioning dropdown is where we can start to pull off some very advanced techniques, so buckle up. The options available to the designer are default, relative, absolute, and fixed. Let's break all four of them down. Relative positioning is named appropriately because it is positioned relatively to its parent container. Once you position something relative, you can now pinpoint where you want the element or block aligned using this crosshair grid. Absolute positioning means the element or block is positioned absolutely in relation to the container it is being housed inside of. Just like relative positioning, you can pin an element or block to certain sides of the container by applying 0 pixel values to any of the pixel crosshairs. The crosshairs represent the sides of the container. So if you want to pin it to the upper right-hand corner of a container, enter a 0 into the right side of the crosshair, as well as a 0 on the top. Our last form of positioning is fixed. Fixed positioning is the most powerful, as it positions elements and blocks in relation to the entire browser window. This feature is most commonly used to create sticky navigations that lock to the top or the bottom of event pages. You may notice, the first time you decide to position something fixed, that it seems to have disappeared. This is because the Z-index of the element or block is currently set to 0. But what is Z-index, and why is it so important to properly understand? Well, let's break this down for a second. A common analogy to explain Z-index is a club sandwich. Stay with me here. A sandwich has many different layers to it that sit directly on top of each other. The same goes for web design in regards to Z-index. The Z-index can create different planes or layers for elements and blocks to live on. Most elements and blocks in Splash have a Z-index of 1. So, to have a fixed position element or block sit on top of everything else on the website, we just have to increase its Z-index to anything above 1 or 2. To play it safe, we'll set this block to 10. Now, we need to make sure we are positioning the block precisely, so let's enter 0 values in the left side and the top side of the crosshairs. As we scroll up and down the page, you'll now notice that the navigation block stays stationary, fixed to the top of the event page. But keep in mind, if something is positioned fixed, it is sitting on its own layer. So anything sitting directly below it could potentially get cut off. So it's important to experiment with additional padding on the blocks that follow it to provide more breathing room. The last portion of the positioning tab is experimenting with translating the X and Y axis and rotating the element or block. These are very advanced features, only applicable to the most advanced web designers. With great power comes great responsibility. So enjoy trying things out, but trusting the default values of the positioning tab is usually your best bet. And remember, everything in the positioning tab can be altered in the tablet and mobile views as well.